Hi, it's Nicole McGurk with this month's scrapbook stamping brought to you by 2peasinabucket.com. August's class features resist stamping techniques for your scrapbook page layouts. This month I have several things that I am going to be using resist techniques on. The first is this die cut title. I'm going to be using this clean background stamp from Hero Arts. It's a stripe design. I'm going to ink it up with some Versamark ink. And then I'm going to simply stamp my die cut, and I'm going to have to do it a couple times because it's longer than what my stamp is. I'm going to do it in sections. I'm going to go ahead and put some white embossing powder on that and then heat it up with my heat gun. Then I'm going to ink up my stamp again and finish stamping the design on the remainder of the die cut title. And then I'll just repeat the same thing I did before. I'll put on some white embossing powder and then heat that up with my heat gun. Now for my class, for my layout, I'm going to be using Studio Calico Mr. Huey Mists for my resisting. Other popular things that you can use for resist are the Ranger Distress inks, Distress stains, re-inkers for your ink pads, paint, things like that. The distress inks, stains, and mists are my favorite ways of using the resist technique. So you can see there how where I've embossed the stamped image, the ink has beaded up from where I sprayed that Mr. Huey Studio Calico spray mist there. So I used a couple of colors. I used some orange and some red just so kind of gives a little bit of a gradient of color. It's kind of hard to see here, but on the finished piece. And you could do that with maybe several different colors. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to cut a whole bunch of things out with my Silhouette or with a die cutting machine out of white cardstock. And I am using smooth white cardstock. And then you can color it with anything you want. And it's really easy to do with the spray mists. Now this is just for my title block. It's a 6x6 square of craft cardstock, and I'm just spraying it with the white Mr. Huey mist to give it a little bit of texture so it's not quite so plain, since I'm adding quite a bit of color and things to the rest of my layout with the spray ink. Now I've pre-cut some 3x3 squares from some smooth white cardstock. For what I'm doing with these pretty detailed text stamps, these are from Technique Tuesday. These are some of Ali Edwards' clear stamps. I want a really clean and crisp stamped image. That one wasn't very good, so I threw that one away and did it again. I didn't stamp it very straight. I find that I get better results with smooth cardstock instead of like a textured cardstock like maybe American Crafts or Basil. So I generally use Neenah Solar White cardstock. I use it for almost everything. Any Copic coloring or any other kind of stamping that I want to do on white cardstock, I use this cardstock. So I've heat set that with some white ink, and then I spritz that with some of the Studio Calico spray mist. And then I'm going to set that aside and let it dry just a little bit. I'm not even going to wipe off any of the ink that's beaded up over my stamped image quite yet. So I'm going to continue doing the same thing with some more text style stamps. Here I used a little bit of yellow on this piece, and then I'm going to use a little bit of orange just for a little bit more gradient of color. Again, I'm going to set that aside. I'm not even going to wipe that off yet. I'm going to go ahead and go on to my third square. I'm going to use a couple of stamps here, one that says Road Trip and one that says 2011. And these are all like accent pieces, but they also help tell the story. And you can see I'm not giving it a really full coverage. You can kind of choose how you want to do it. I could completely cover it and make it more of a solid green, but I want to leave it a little bit distressed looking. Now I'm going to take the butterfly dies from Tim Holtz, and I'm using the tray that's an accessory piece for cutting these movers and shakers dies that Tim has, and I'm going to cut out several butterflies, and I'm just going to run that through using some again, smooth white cardstock until I have several butterflies. And then I'm going to take these leaf stamps from Hero Arts, and I'm going to stamp right on the butterflies to give them a little bit of texture and design. Again, going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to use white embossing powder to heat set that. So it's a really subtle image there, and the butterflies are rather small. They're a great size for scrapbook layouts and cards and things. And then I'm going to use the spray mist to add color. And then I'm just going to take a baby wipe and dab off any of that ink that's pooled on the resisted part of the stamped image. And then I will do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and grab my squares now and wipe off any of that ink that's pooled up on the text part of that stamped image. So you can see it leaves a really nice white, crisp, stamped and embossed image that's resisted all of that spray ink. I think it's a really fun look, and it's a great way to also kind of create your own backgrounds and things like that. Again, I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of my butterflies. I'm going to stamp some designs on them using these delicate leaf cluster stamps from Hero Arts. And then I will use the spray mists to add color. And you could add a variation of color. I'm using a lot of solids on these. I'll show one that I've added a couple colors to here in just a second. And with these inks, if you accidentally maybe try to add a couple of colors and it gives too much of the second color, you can kind of wipe it off and start over if you need to. So I'm going to grab another stamp and finish stamping these butterflies. So here is where I thought I would add a little bit of white over that, and I oversprayed. So I went back over it with the red to kind of cover up where I messed that up a little bit so that I didn't have to redo the whole thing. Then just dab that excess ink off of the stamped image, and then I'm going to set them aside to dry. If you're impatient, like I am often, you can go ahead and heat that ink up to dry it even quicker. While I did this though, I actually just set them aside and they dried pretty quickly. Then I went and had supper, and when I came back they were already all dried. So here I tried to add a little brown, and I ended up not liking that at all. So I went back over it with another ink color. Another thing you can do is I'm going to stamp directly over where I have already done these squares with the text. I'm going to just ink it up with a Studio Calico stamp here, and it kind of looks like a coffee stain stamp. This is an older stamp that was in a limited edition one, but it adds even more distressing to the image. And where it's stamped and embossed, it will resist that ink. So you just have to wipe off that excess again, and it just adds another layer and more fun to those squares. So anywhere basically that you have stamped and embossed, it's going to resist these inks. Try to figure out the best place to stamp my little circle there. And I feel like the more layers that you can add, the more interesting these stamped pieces are. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with some small little phrases, stamped phrases, and add those to my squares here. It just adds another layer without any bulk. It's all fairly flat, but it just adds more interest to your page, plus helps tell your story. And of course, I'm doing a vacation themed page, but you could do the same design with almost anything. So I'm going to grab another stamp. I'm going to go ahead and stamp a little phrase above this one as well, trying to figure out the best place to put it. And then I will go ahead and finish the last one. And here's where I used a gradient of color. I used some yellow on one side of the butterfly and then some green on the other. Now I'm ready to start putting together my page, and I just have some white 12 by 12 cardstock for the background, and I'm taking my 3 by 3 photos and placing them around the perimeter of the page. I'm using those plus those 3 by 3 squares that I stamped. So I'm just going to quickly add all of these. I think interspersing some of those stamped elements with the photos adds for a more interesting border than just a solid photo border. It also allows for some embellishment on a very photo heavy page. For the center of my layout, I have a 6 by 6 craft square, and I matted it with about a 6 1/4 inch white cardstock square. And then I'll adhere my title. And I want to add a stamped subtitle. I think it adds just a little bit more interest to the title and journaling block here in the center of the page. So I have a script style text stamp, and then I'll have another one there. And then I've got my butterflies that I'm just going to kind of laying out and seeing where I think they will look good. So I'm going to grab some brown ink now and go ahead and stamp my subtitle. I'm going to start with this little phrase here. Get that lined up. Make sure I like where that is going to end up. And then stamp that right there above my die cuts. And then take the script word and stamp that right above the little phrase. And I think that just adds a really fun touch to the title. Now I'm going to take an Echo Park sticker and going to pop it up with some foam adhesive. And it has a phrase on it that is really cute, but it doesn't necessarily work with my layout. So I'm going to show you what I did to customize my sticker, because I really like that yellow polka dot border. I took another one of their banner stickers and ran it through my printer and added some information about my page, and I'm just trimming it out so that I don't have that wide orange border around it. It has a cute little kind of a pinstripe orange border around where I printed my journaling. So I'm going to cut that out and then peel off the sticker backing, and then I can adhere that right over the other sticker so I have a customized sticker. Now I'm ready to, I added my title with some spray adhesive, and I just cut that part out because it was boring. And I'm going to wrap a little bit of divine twine right underneath my title and above that banner. Gives a little bit of texture plus some dimension to a fairly flat page, and a pop of color as well. So just do that, and I'll trim the ends. Now to adhere my butterflies, I'm going to add a glue dot in the center, and then I'm going to pop their wings up with a little bit of foam adhesive. I find that way, once you put your layout in the album, the wings won't smash down just flat with the page. It still gives them that little bit of dimension, like they're flying there on your page. Then I'm taking photo turns and adhering those as the body of my butterflies. Again, it's a fun way to add a embellishment to your die cut piece, plus it adds texture and a little bit of dimension as well, since this is a lot of paper and stamping and not a lot of dimensional embellishments. Just kind of adds another element to the page. So I'm going to continue adding my butterflies that way. For more information on this layout, please visit twopiesinnabucket.com on August 1st, 2011 under the free classes for scrapbook stamping. Thanks for watching.